We're doing Bamidbar Chapter 16. This is the chapter and the next chapter somewhat. I'm not sure if the chapter was split in the correct place. But in any case, this chapter and the next chapter talk about what's known as the Machlokes of Korach, or the challenge, the faction of Korach, which came to be against Moshe, specifically against Aharon and being the Kohen. Probably the most significant challenge, as we've discussed. In some sense, all the challenges in Sefer Bamidbar are challenges against the leadership. This might be the most, or might most explicitly the challenge against the leadership, right? It's very explicitly Korach saying that Aharon's leadership, Aharon's priesthood, Aharon's kahuna is not legitimate. And there also seems to be the most extreme response. The response to Korach seems to be the most extreme, the most deliberate and extreme response from all these challenges, which is another reason to think that this challenge was somewhat more significant, or maybe one of the most important, I would say, rebellions or challenges to the leadership that there was in the Midbar. And it's described in quite at length and with different steps, both action steps, so what's the actions Korach did, what actions other people who were along with him, part of his faction or different faction along with his party did, and also different discussions of debates. This is one attribute of all the challenges, as I've discussed already once. It's not that Moshe just uses power, he also seems to have rhetoric. There's also arguments made from both sides. And then also the question of the punishment or Hashem's response. So Hashem always somehow steps in at some point and shows who is correct and basically backs up Moshe, backs up Aharon, and so on. But those are the three things, and each of them have various doublings and various different stages, or however you understand the story repeating itself or going back and forth. So we'll try to go in order of the chapter and go through what it says. So first it talks about, gives you like a very general description of the rebellion, and this is called Vayikach Korach. It doesn't say, there isn't a object of this verb exactly. Vayikach, who did he take? And apparently this is an object, the Mefarshim all struggle with this, but this is probably a verb that is trying to say he became a faction, he became a party, and to stand against Moshe. As it says in the next pasuk, Veikalu al Moshe, they gathered against Moshe, they gathered to stand in opposition to Moshe. So what we have is a list, and a list that also has some of the attributes of Sefer Bamidbar in the sense of giving genealogies and lists, and the census of everything. So we have Korach with his entire genealogy, the son of Yitzchok, Lewy. Then we have two other people, Datan and Aviram, sons of Eliav, Oin, the son of Peles. These are all sons of Reuven. And they'll stand in front of Moshe along with a third. So there's Korach, there's these two brothers plus one more person from Reuven. And then there's a third group, more people from Bnei Yisrael, generally from the Bnei Yisrael, 250, and not Stam Bnei Yisrael. This is like we discussed. There's the Eidos, so these are the Nesiah, the leaders, the leaders, the princes of the congregation. Kriyah Moed, these are the people that were called, right? Remember we had before, there's people that are called, the Mikra Eidos. These are one of the people that we get called. So one of the elders, Anshe Shem, people of names, people, like we said, they were Nikra B'Shem, right? We had before the lists of people that were in charge of the census and so on. People whose name is known. These are not just randos. These are people who are explicitly part of the leadership, really. And they're the ones challenging the leadership and the position of Moshe and Aharon. And this is their first statement, and we'll see there's a response with the same rhetoric or the same language. Their first statement starts, Rav Lechem, you have too much. It's great, you've taken us a great amount. All of us, Kol ha'eda, Kolam Kedoshim, they're all holy. People usually read this to mean the entire community is holy, but as we've been discussing, Eda doesn't necessarily always mean every single person, or it might be also not every single person, but always as represented by the elders, as led by the Ziknei Eda, by the people in charge of the Eda. So it's possible that he's saying, look, we're all under this authority of the Eda Kedoshim, and Hashem is with all of us. So why are you acting with hitnasut? I'm always looking for the correct term about this, for being raised up, for being higher. Why do you think you're higher than Hashem's gathering, Hashem's kahal, Hashem's community? So this is the very general challenge, and to this it seems like all of these sides, all of these people, whether they're separate factions within Moshe Korach's party, whether or not, these are all something they all agree with. They're saying in very general terms, Moshe and Aharon have too much power, they have too much. Why are they think that they're better than everyone else? Now, Moshe, as we've seen before, falls on his face. He hears and he falls on his face. again, which means something like, it might mean something like, I don't really have what to answer. This might be an act of like humility, something like he's not standing, they're standing, right? Vayikimu, they're standing. And Moshe falls to his face. He's like, who am I? What am I doing here? But he does speak. Then he stands up. Doesn't say, well, there's some discontinuity here maybe. But he stands up and he speaks to Korach and to all of his congregation, to everyone on the side of Korach. Kol Adosai, the Adas of Korach, he speaks to them and he gives them a test. This is very interesting, maybe the first time. But we have a test. We have the story of a Saita, which is a similar kind of test, where by bringing a carbon, there will be a test. And this is also a test. Moshe proposes a trial by test. Let's see who is right. And he says, let's see in the morning, we will see, Hashem will show who is the one he chose, who is really holy, who did he chose, who did he make close to him. And he proposed a test. This is what you'll do. You'll take machtos, you'll take vessels of where we put fire, where we put ketores in. You will put fire, you will put ketores, all of you will do this, and we will see whoever Hashem chooses, he is the Holy One. And he finishes with the same way they started, Rav Lechem B'nai Levi. So in other words, and as we'll see, he elaborates on this in the next piece when he talks specifically to B'nai Levi. Before he was talking to everyone, maybe also not from Levi, right? So we're explicitly people from Shevet Reuven here, and from other people, from other Shvat and B'nai Yisrael. But he seems to propose, look, there's ketores. It doesn't say what will happen. We'll see later that something happened. But it seems like the simple test is something like goes back all the way to Cain and Hevel. Vayisha Hashem el Cain. When they bring a carbon, there's a way to know if God accepts someone's carbon. And of course, the point of a kohen is that he is the one that it's authorized to bring karbonos. So you people are claiming that you're also authorized. Okay, try it out. Let's see. Try to bring a carbon. Which carbon? Ketores. Okay. But you'll try it out. And now he tries to speak also specifically to Korach, specifically to Leviim. And he says, and this is again very much pertinent to this book, this is the book where we had the choosing of the Leviim, the giving the Leviim their job, right? It's not something that we had in earlier books, at least not in the same explicit way, not at length. And Moshe speaks to the Levi and he tells them, look, Hashem, the God of Israel, has already separated you from all the other people to make you closer. You're the ones who are serving in the Mishkan. You're the ones who stand before the congregation to serve them, right? In other words, you serve for them, as we've seen many times. You stand in for them. You're their shliach in the Mishkan. And now you want Kahuna also. In other words, you already have Levi. So this is, of course, what always happens, where everyone knows. It's never the real low classes that can rise against the elites. It's always some subset of the elite that think that they don't have enough power, they don't have enough dignity, they don't have enough whatever privileges it is that they're demanding. But Moshe is saying, look, this is basically what he's saying. He's saying, you're demanding privilege, but you're already privileged. So don't notice that you're also privileged. And then he finishes this little speech with saying that you are not about me, you're about Hashem. And this is the big statement that Moshe has. The Rambam quotes this later pasuk of Moshe in this parsha as like a very general pasuk about Moshe's entire message, his entire shlichus, everything he does, that he doesn't do things in his own name, he does things in Hashem's name. But this is what he's saying. You and everyone, you've gathered here against Hashem, not against me. What do you want from Aharon? Aharon didn't do anything. Hashem chose him, as he's saying, and this, of course, is what his test is meant to show. This test is meant to move the question, not from the question that people will deliberate about and discuss, to a question that God will decide by showing whose carbon he accepts. So that's about the Leviim. Now, apparently this didn't answer the question of the Datan and Aviram, who are children of Eliyav, children of Reuven. For them you can't say that they're Levi and so on. So he tries to go speak to them. So he calls them, other than by Korach, where he speaks to them directly. Apparently they were not there, or there's something happened in between. He calls them, but they don't come. And then they respond by themselves or through some messenger. They say, will not come. And they answer him. It's very interesting. They answer him in the same language that he's answered to Levi. Right? Moshe started Hamat Mikem, so there's Rav Ma'at the whole time. Rav. And then Moshe said, Hamat, is it little, is it few, what you've gotten already? And then they say to Moshe in the same way. They say, Ma'at, is it the few what you've done to us? So we see what their real problem is. Is it a little? Is it small to you? The problem you made for us, you took us out of Eretz Zavos Chalav Dvash, and they flipped the script, right? Mitzrayim was never called Eretz Zavos Chalav Dvash. Nobody thought that. There were different things that people complained about Mitzrayim and Baal Yisrael. We talked about Kishuim and Avtichim and so on. Nobody said that Zavos Chalav Dvash. That wasn't a description of Eretz Canaan. But here they're saying, look, you took us out of Eretz Zavos Chalav Dvash. You're going to kill us in the desert, and now you want power over us. You want to stir it. Same idea as Nasis, right? You want to be a sar. You want to be like a power, a prince over us. You didn't bring us to Ezer with Chalvash. You didn't give us a nachla. You didn't give us a land with a field, with a vineyard and anything. What are you trying to do? You're trying to put out our eyes, trying to pierce out our eyes. I think this is a image to say that Moshe is fooling us. He's pulling the wool over our eyes, as we would say, or they would say, are you punching out our eyes? We can see what you're doing to us. We're not coming to you. So this is what was their argument. So Korach was saying that Moshe took too much power, and this Aviram were saying that Moshe has promised and has not delivered. He promised to bring us out of Mitzrayim to a better place, and turns out he brought us to a worse place, and even that he can't provide for us. We're all going to die in the desert. And now here Moshe is upset. Moshe is very upset, is angry, and he asks Hashem, and since we said that the test will be Hashem, if Hashem accepts their mincha, so we ask Hashem, do not accept their mincha. Al tefnal minchasam, exactly the language that we discussed, like Kain. Al vayifen Hashem, right? Hashem, do not point, do not turn to their mincha. And Moshe says, and responding to their argument against him, that they said that look, he's somehow oppressing them, right? He's taking them out of Eretz Zalz Chadvash to a worse place. And Moshe says, did I take something from them? I didn't even take one donkey from them. I didn't do anything bad to any of them. I'm trying to help them. It's true that there's challenges. And Moshe is not even answering, not justifying himself about the fact that he's not taking them to Eretz Canaan and so on. But what he's doing is saying, their idea of me as some kind of oppressor, some kind of person who's just taking them, just trying to look for his own gain, that's not correct. I'm here to help them. And, if it helps or it doesn't help, that's up to Hashem in some sense. So we're back to the test. So Moshe goes back to Korach, tells them the exact plan for tomorrow. You'll come all tomorrow morning. Each will bring his machta. You'll put ketores. You'll bring it all to Hashem. 250 people. So 250 machtos. And maybe Moshe even prepared these. It's not clear why he's counting how many machtas there are. And we'll bring you and Aharon. So there's 250 people. Each one thinks he is. Okay, let's all try. And you and Aharon will bring. So apparently they're the main, right? These are the principles of this debate. Like it's either Korach or Aharon in the end. And that's what they do. And they follow through what Moshe has challenged them to do. They each bring their machta. They each put ketores on it. They all stand Pesach al Moed, which is the place where all kavunas are brought. Moshe and Aharon stand there. Korach brings everyone to watch the story. And Vayera Kvod Hashem al Kol Ha'ida, and then the glory of Hashem is revealed. We've seen this exact state many times. The glory of Hashem is revealed. Usually, sometimes it's a good thing, right? As we saw in Parashat Shemini, that means that the Mishkan has Kvod Hashem, but also means that God is noticed, right? Like we said, always in these stories, God intervenes at some point and takes over this situation. And when God intervenes, usually in these situations, it makes things worse. Moshe is always the one making things lighter, making things better. Even when he's upset, even when he's Vayicha LaMoshe Moed, Moshe didn't propose to do anything like what God proposes, but God proposed something much more radical. And God speaks to Moshe and Aharon and he tells them, please separate yourself from this congregation. I will destroy all of them in a moment. And Moshe and Aharon fall on the face for Hashem. Here we see her. And they ask him, they beg him, they say, Elil Ha'arich is God, the God of all spirits. L'chal basa, all the spirits of each flesh. So this is some language for a human life, for a human soul. And they're saying one person sins and you're upset at the entire congregation. So here we see Hashem's plan was to kill everyone. Not only Korach, besides for Moshe and Aharon. Very similar to what happened in the Egel, right? Where Hashem says, I'll make you v'es oischel gadol. Hashem here also wants the same thing. He says, you separate yourself and everyone will be dead. But then Moshe says, what do you mean? It's just Korach. And obviously, there's an argument here, right? It's not just Hashem being over mad and saying, I will kill everyone. What's going on is probably that Korach convinced most people, or at least the important people of the Eidah, to be on his side. But Moshe is arguing that it's not their fault. They're all led by Korach, so you should be angry at Korach, not at all of them. And therefore, Hashem seems to agree to this, and therefore we get a new message. V'daber Hashem Moshe, and he says, Taber el Eidah, so now the Eidah is already part of the saved side, and they tell them, you should separate yourself, you should rise from around the Mishkan. Very interesting. This is the only time when I'm trying to remember, there's one more person that has a Mishkan, but the Korach and Datan and Aviram are said to have a Mishkan, like against the Mishkan of Hashem. But everyone should go away from it because they will be destroyed, but not everyone else. So that's what happens. So Moshe stands up and again goes to Datan and Aviram. So the whole time we see Korach and his people are next to Moshe. Pesach and Moed, of course, makes sense. Korach was a Levi, so he was close. But Datan and Aviram are far. They're wherever Shevet Reuven lives, so they're not in the same place. So therefore, Moshe has to go to them, and all the elders go after him. And Moshe speaks to the elders, speaks to the congregation. He tells them, move away, separate yourself from the tents of these evil people. Don't touch anything them, because you'll be destroyed, you'll be died along with their sins. So, in other words, you do have to separate. So when it says separation, the separation means if something bad happens to them, if you happen to be there, you might also get caught up with it. It's not that when there's a natural disaster or something, some punishment that happens, it's going to happen on their place. So if you're smart, you're going to move out of the way, and then you won't have the problem. So that's what they do, and they all move away. But Datan and Aviram are defiant. They come out, they stand Pesach Halayim, which is again what you already see. That's the place like where you stand when you're making taking an official stand. They're standing there with their wives, with their children, with their older children, with their younger children, and they're not afraid. They're saying, "Okay, we're here." And here Moshe gives his final speech, his final sort of challenge to this, and he says, "Now you will know that Hashem sent me to do everything I've done." Right? So we see they're challenging everything. As we see, they challenged them, take them out of Mitzrayim. They challenged making Aharon and Aharon. They challenged everything. He said, "You will see that Hashem sent me. I didn't make this up. This is not from my heart. I didn't make any of this up." And we'll see like this: if these people die, like every person dies, everyone dies, right? So the fact that people die, that doesn't prove anything. And I think that this is very clearly a reference to what happened before in the Meraglim. Because the Meraglim exactly died like every person, right? As it says, they will die in the Midbar, they will take 40 years, but it doesn't say that anyone, besides for some people, but even them, it doesn't say exactly when they died. And the basic story of the Midbar is that they all died, that took time, they stayed for another generation in the desert until the previous generation died. But they all died basically. Everyone died, in the way that people die. But Moshe says that doesn't prove. Okay, so it got pushed off. It's basically what they said, that I can't take them to Eretz Yisrael. So they sort of got what they predicted. Of course, it's presented as a punishment for a sin, but that's basically what nobody really got his side proven to be right. But Moshe is saying, now, if that will happen, then Le Hashem shlachani. You're right. Hashem didn't send me. But if Hashem will do something new, and it's this kind of, if He will create a creation, I don't know this necessarily means something like very extreme, like Bereshis Bara Elikim, like whatever creation means. But the point is that if there will be something new, something unlike creation, this is probably the clearest place you could find in the Torah for the concept of the difference between what we call natural course of events and a miraculous course, or something that directly attributable to God, right? Imbriya Yivra Hashem. If He will do something, and what will He do? The earth will open its mouth and swallow them and everything belonging to them. They will go straight down alive to Sheol. Sheol is where dead people go, under the ground somehow, wherever that is. Then you will know that these people have blasphemed against God. It's not against me, against God. And that's exactly what happened. As He finishes to speak, the earth opens its mouth, it splits, it opens its mouth, it swallows them, their houses, meaning their household, all their people, all their possessions, everything goes down to Sheol, and then it covers them up. The earth covers them up, they get lost. So they're out of the congregation, they get lost. And then the people around all run away from the great sound, from the great noise of this earth opening up, so some kind of earthquake or however exactly it would be described. And because they realize that this is a dangerous place. And then, so that's what happens to Korach, Datan and Aviram. Then the 250 people, a fire comes out from Hashem, from the Mizbeach, this means from wherever, like Me'es Hashem, from where Hashem is, Koid Hashem, and it destroys, it eats, meaning destroys or burns the 250 people. This is, of course, very similar to what happened with Nadav and Avihu, brought ketores and got burnt. So obviously, this is what really happens. We just said that we didn't have this until now. They were not threatened with dying. They were only threatened with Hashem not accepting their carbon. But apparently, when you play with fire, when Hashem doesn't accept your carbon, and at least when it's in a way of a challenge and all of that, so this is what's going to happen. What's going to happen is you will be killed. So that's the end of this chapter, and we'll see there's a continuation to this story. And I'm not sure the chapter should have stopped here, or probably shouldn't have. For sure, it should have went until here. But we will follow the chapter division for today.